Young Turks, everybody. Ben Mankiewicz here. A lot going on this Friday. We're going to begin with the government shutdown. Harry Reid blaming it on the Tea Party, and Harry Reid, of course, is correct. He said the Tea Party's social agenda, the reason to blame for the possible government shutdown, and says, of course, the real reason having nothing to do with the budget, nothing to do with $61 billion or $40 billion or the $60.8 billion, which is my guess of what the Democrats will ultimately come to, but not a penny more than $60.8 billion. He says the issue is the social agenda of the Tea Party and their insistence on defunding Planned Parenthood. No more arguments over funding, federal funding for abortions, because there is no federal funding for abortions. But now, of course, the Tea Party doesn't want any funding for Planned Parenthood, which means essentially that what we've come down to is the issue of like pap smears. And by God, no woman's going to get a pap smear or any federal funding for a pap smear if the Tea Party has its way. God forbid there should be any sort of safe prenatal care in this country, because we've got budget problems. And $4 billion is safely secured in tax cuts, subsidies, tax subsidies for big oil. And I don't want to see any woman who can't afford it getting a pap smear. That's what Harry Reid says, and he's right. He says now the Tea Party, among others, they are the biggest push, trying to push its extreme social agenda, issues that have nothing to do with funding the bill. That's right. He says the issue of women's health, that is a reference unquestionably to the funding of Planned Parenthood. That's the sticking point. Negotiations expected to continue, but we're right at the point where we could be well looking at a government shutdown. Mike Pence has taken the lead on this issue from Indiana. He is a Tea Party favorite. And he manages not to have the reputation, at least in the mainstream media, of being extreme, but he is. And we'll begin with Mike Pence on Morning Joe here, pointing out that the issue of defunding Planned Parenthood is a significant issue, even though, again, the abortion issue completely, there's no question, there's no federal funding of abortion, but still, the Tea Party, extreme social agenda of the Tea Party, which has co-opted the mainstream Republican Party. There is no more mainstream Republican Party. But the far-right agenda has taken over these negotiations, and unless we defund Planned Parenthood, there's going to be a Republican shutdown, there's going to be a government shutdown, no matter how much these guys claim that it's the fault of the left. Here's Mike Pence.
A lot of Democrats have called your amendment to this budget, the amendment to defund Planned Parenthood, a deal breaker. They say no budget will be passed through the Senate with that in it. On the other side, Republicans, some conservative Republicans say they will not vote for any budget that does not have it in it. Are you willing to hold up this entire budget over defunding Planned Parenthood?
Well, of course I am. I think the American people have begun to learn that the largest abortion provider in the country is also the largest recipient of federal funding under Title X, and they want to see that come to an end. You know, I think there's a broad consensus in this country.
That's good enough. Of course I am. That's all you need to hear from Mike Pence. Of course I am. And by the way, as long as Mike Pence, who keeps saying, by the way, earlier that liberals want to shut this down, that liberals want to do it, he, by the way, as he just said there, he can't help but say that he's willing to shut it down. Let me hear clip 2 here, JR, is because, by the way, they get into funding the troops, which, by the way, they're now temporarily willing to. Of course they're going to fund the troops. Everybody's going to fund the troops. Nobody wants to defund the troops. It's ridiculous. They've been talking about it since before the Iraq War. Nobody's interested in defunding the troops, so shut up about funding the troops. All right? Nobody's going to let troops go into Iraq or Afghanistan and not pay them. That's not going to happen. And everybody on the planet knows that. But here, again, Mike Pence can't help but admit it. He is willing to shut the government down. Clip 2.
We are going to pass this continuing resolution. We are going to fund our troops in harm's way and stationed all across the world and all across this nation. And if Democrats here in Washington would rather play political games and shut down the government than support our troops, defend our treasury, and respect our values, then I say shut it down. And I'm certain the American people are going to know who to blame.
You, Mike Pence. Mike Pence is Michelle Bachmann with white hair and a penis. 7,000 votes in Wisconsin all of a sudden showed up. Hey, look at this. Hey, look at this. I found my iPhone. And holy crap, 7,000 votes under this piece of paper. And all of a sudden, the conservative judge is in the lead in Wisconsin, and so much so is he in the lead that there may not even be a recount. So the woman counting the vote there was Waukesha County Clerk Kathy Nicholas announced at 5:30 p.m. yesterday in a press conference, sounding nervous as she made the announcement, that she had recanvassed, and it turned out there were about about 14,000 votes that she stumbled across, and that caused a 7,500 vote swing in favor of David Prosser, the conservative, who's expected to back Scott Walker on the state Supreme Court, which would support his union-busting law, and not Joanne Kloppenburg, who appeared had won the race or was narrowly ahead. There was going to be a recount, but she appeared to have a couple hundred vote lead. So now we're at the point where his lead has turned into what? We're at about a 7,000 vote lead for David Prosser, and that would be more than needs for a recount. Democrats crying foul. It seems ridiculous that we would all of a sudden find 7,000 votes. Republicans who say, oh, no, look, all the time, don't worry about it. There's no chance. She probably just made a mistake. Republican State Senate Majority Leader Scott Fitzgerald, who we came to know and loathe during the walkout by the 14 Democratic senators, he says that Nicholas probably just made a mistake. Kathy Nicholas just made a mistake. It's no big deal. He says the canvass process in Wisconsin, it's pretty routine after an election happens, and in many cases that he's been involved in over the years, certainly changes to the vote totals come in on election night. And then I love this. He noted that in Grant County, for example, more than 100 votes were added for challenger Joanne Kloppenburg after that initial count. 100 votes. And then in Waukesha County, they found 7,000 votes. Come on, man. Yeah, so it's no big deal. Sometimes you just find money. I was looking through my couch and I found 85 cents. And then later, I was looking through your wallet and I found $8,000. Look, sometimes you just find money, man. It's no big deal. Come on. How come Democrats never find 7,500 votes? Seriously, how come we never find 7,500 votes? Ever. In the history, in history, well, not in history, not in West Virginia in 1960, but basically in modern history, how come we never find these votes? Come on, man. All right, we got Dan Frumkin coming up because while this budget talks go on and while we debate whether to cut $61 billion from the budget or the $40 billion that Democrats have already conceded and conceded and conceded because they will not fight for a reasonable number. But maybe they're drawing a line in the sand. Maybe. You can't even say they're drawing a line in the sand because they're already drawing a line at the breaking of the waves. But maybe they're drawing some line, which will get obscured by the waves. But maybe they're trying to draw some sort of line. There are $4 billion in subsidies for a business that has made nearly $1 trillion, $1,000 billion over the last 10 years. Big oil. The boys like Exxon Mobil and Chevron, nearly $1 trillion, and every year we give them $4 billion, including one tax break or a couple of tax breaks that were written 100 years ago. And we're giving them $4 billion a year. Barack Obama wants to cut it, to remove those subsidies, but there's no chance it's going to happen. And we're cutting home heating oil and debating $61 billion or $40 billion, and there's no chance we're going to take out $4 billion for these guys. And by the way, ExxonMobil last year, ExxonMobil, while everybody else was having tough times, while we had unemployment pushing 10% in this country, ExxonMobil made $31 billion. $31 billion in profit. In profit, $31 billion, and they get part of a $4 billion tax break every year. That's your money, and that's my money, and they're not even talking about cutting that. Dan Frumkin wrote a great piece on it on the Huffington Post. He's our guest when we come back.
welcome to the Young Turks. Anna Kasparian and Ben Mankiewicz with you. You know, in the beginning of the show, when you guys see that graphic that has like the 4 different pictures on top, and then there's this one little section that plays the video of me losing to Cenk in the race. Like, we've had that up for how long now? Can we just get rid of it? It's been over 2 years. No, you guys are dicks. That's all you guys are.
There's other classic things on there.
No, there are pictures of like celebrities with their titties hanging out. There's like George Bush.
What race?
There's a very lovely picture of Jesus looking all professional holding a camera.
You know what he was doing? He was filming your race.
He was filming me losing the race to Cenk.
It was just as old.
What race did you lose?
The 2 mile. Was it a 2 mile or 1 mile? No, it was a 1 mile race. God, I'm such a failure.
I don't remember that one. Was I there for that one?
Yeah, you were there.
Yeah.
You were interviewing me.
Oh yeah, that's right. You didn't get your ass kicked as much as Jill did, though.
Well, Jill got lapped, but before I got lapped, I had
Jill
injury.
Jill. Oh wait, did you quit or did Jill quit? You quit.
We both quit.
You both.
After Jill got lapped, she was like, "Just forget about it." So she quit, and then I quit after I got an injury. Just calm down.
You got an injury.
Just calm down. Okay, because no, but I really did.
Are you recovered from your injury?
Hold on.
You feel better?
I do feel better.
Okay.
Don't deny that I had an injury. You know why I had that injury?
Because you were losing?
No, because I was an idiot and I listened to someone, I'm not going to name who gave me the strategy of starting off really fast, like basically sprinting, so I intimidate Cenk. Worst idea ever, okay? Because in the process of sprinting...
Just stop. Just stop.
It was a disaster.
Yeah, okay. You lost, and you realized you couldn't win, and you were embarrassed, and you quit. You're like the 8 billionth person to do that.
No, that's actually not what happened.
All right.
And he wasn't that ahead of me. Like, if I kept going, I think that there's a good shot. There was a good shot. But I was hurt. What am I going to do? Okay. You're the worst, Ben. You're the worst. Okay.
All right.
So yesterday we were doing this story about bacon. Random story. But this company's making bacon cologne, and then Cenk and I got into it because he's obsessed with bacon, and I think it's disgusting.
You think bacon's disgusting?
I do, and I realize
delicious.
that I'm a minority, right?
Yeah.
I realize that most people love bacon, especially in the United States. It's everyone's favorite food. But I was surprised because I got this email yesterday, and I wanted to read it to show you guys that some people do support me. Okay? So this email is from a listener. He says, "Bacon is disgusting. Cenk is wrong. Bacon is absolutely horrible. Cenk is completely wrong. I went to watch the movie The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, and all I remember about the movie is how some asshole brought a bacon cheeseburger into the movie theater. The aroma was disgusting. Hate bacon." I love this guy. Best listener in the world.
You know who doesn't like bacon?
Who?
In a surprising development? Michael Schur.
Michael Schur's the best.
But like, he's a big foodie.
He is.
Yeah. He loves meat. Mm-hmm. He likes meat from all over the world. He's always bringing back like jerky from Kansas, you know, and like, he didn't like bacon. Doesn't care for it. I love bacon. My Contessa, my ex-wife, which is still a very weird thing to say, didn't eat meat, except she ate bacon.
Really?
Yeah, she loved bacon. Yeah.
That's interesting. I didn't know that.
That couldn't make me miss her more, by the way.
Oh.
Yeah. So all right. So you don't like bacon.
Yeah, I don't like bacon. And I'm amused that Michael Schur also doesn't like bacon. And he is a foodie. Like, when he comes into the studio, the first thing he does is he comes up to JR and asks whether or not he has snacks for the day.
I think he's a foodie. It's like there's huge pressure on him to be a foodie too. Like, he'll go to a restaurant and he wants to get the spaghetti and meatballs, but he gets like, quail eggs. And I'm like, you don't want the quail eggs, dude. But, he's like, no, they're delicious.
Please.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to the stories. So there's an owner of a pastry shop in Austria that's facing a lot of criticism because apparently he has this book of different cakes he's made in the past, and one of the pictures features a cake that's Nazi themed. So there's swastikas on it. Apparently there's like a baby on it who's doing the Hitler salute.
Yeah, there's an arm coming out of it giving the Heil Hitler salute.
Right, exactly. So people are, of course, upset at this, and they're like, okay, first of all, you should get rid of that picture in your little book of cakes because it's offensive and we don't like it. And, this is basically his answer. He was very unapologetic. He says that the cakes were made about 8 years ago, and he never expected such a commotion. And he says, if it's requested, it's made. I don't want to be pulled into this because I'm a confectioner and there's nothing more to it.
If it's requested, it's made. What's the big deal?
Yeah.
Also,
there's-
he should be exempt from this argument because he's a confectioner.
Yeah, exactly. I'm a confectioner, okay? So I can make offensive cakes.
Yeah. The funny thing about this Nazi stuff, you either get it or you don't. 99.8% of the people get it. Like, you can't make cakes about Nazis. You can't name your son Adolf and carve a swastika into his head. And then there's the 0.02% of people, they just don't understand it. They're like, I'm a confectioner. What's the big deal?
If they ask, I make it.
Yeah, you want a Nazi cake? I make a Nazi cake. Why are we having this argument?
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's beyond them, and they don't, and you can't explain it to them. But the best part of this story are the names in the stories. And I would like to read the names in the story, if I could, as if they were characters, and as if I were a character on Hogan's Heroes.
Okay.
Have you ever seen Hogan's Heroes?
No, I don't even know what that is.
It was an awesome 1960s television show about prisoners of war in a Nazi prisoner of war camp.
Okay.
And people hated the show. I mean, it was awesome, but some people hated it because they thought it was making fun of Nazis. And it was like too soon. That's what my mom thought. Too soon. Okay, so the place where the bakery is, it's in the village of Maria Enzersdorf. See, it's already funny. Then including an arm raised and a Hitler salute, and the committee complaining is the Mauthausen Committee. That one's not as good, though, right? But the store owner, the guy who says, I'm a confectioner. What's the big deal? His name? Manfred Klauschka.
Yeah, that name is Manfred.
Manfred Klauschka. Like, you're already a little afraid of that guy. That's the problem with Germans, is their names, and you already don't like him. Like, you're going to date, hello, I'm Manfred Klauschka. Could I take you to dinner?
Yeah,
like,
I would probably not date.
You're not going, he could look like George Clooney. You're like, I'm going to pass. If it's requested, it is made, said Manfred Klauschka. And then the spokesman for the public prosecutor's office is named Erich Habitzel. Yeah, I don't like him either. And then the the prosecutor's office is in Wiener Neustadt. I couldn't love it. I couldn't love German names more.
Yeah, they're definitely unique. No
Yeah, I
question
mean, I
about
couldn't
that.
love them more because they're all terrifying. That's why they can't get past the Holocaust. They have to change their names. And I don't see how they're going to do that.
That's crazy, though. You're not serious about that.
It's a little bit. Like if this guy said, if it's the confectioner said, if it's requested, it's made, said James Baxter. I'd be like, "Oh."
It does give a different feel to it.
Totally. I'd be like, let him off the hook. Let him go.
All right, let's go on to the next story. This one's a little serious, but I think it brings a really fascinating question at hand. So there's a judge in Nebraska. His name is Judge Paul Merritt, and right now he's issuing a contempt order against an alleged 24-year-old sexual assault victim because she refuses to testify in a sexual assault case. Now, the judge says that the reason why he's issuing the contempt order is because of the fact that her testimony is so crucial to the outcome of the case. But, you know, the alleged sexual assault victim is saying, look, this is going to ruin my life. It's so humiliating. It's something that I don't want to talk about. I just want to forget about it and put it past me. Okay? Now, since she is refusing to testify, she could face 90 days in jail.
Yeah, it's a totally interesting case, though. Like, initially, I read the story and I think, you can't make her testify. It's a horrible thing. But suppose the prosecutors know that this guy has attacked other women, has molested other women. And he probably has. I don't know, but it's odd that this guy would have molested one girl, right?
Right.
And suppose that this is the only one that they can get him on, right? Suppose, worst case scenario, let's take another guy, not this guy, a theoretical guy, and he's killed other women, right? And they can't prove those, but they know he has. You know, the way cops, they know it. These women are buried, they're gone, they know this is the guy. And here's the survivor, and she won't testify for very good reasons. Terrified, ruin her life. But this guy, if they let him go, he'll kill again. Like,
Yeah,
can you compel her to testify and threaten to lock her up? Would that be the right thing?
I don't know if threatening to lock her up would be the right thing. Because you make a really good point, and it's a catch-22 because with a sexual assault victim, there's the humiliation, and if she's forced to testify like this, maybe other rape victims are going to look at this case and they're going to be like, I'm going to stay as quiet as possible about the situation I went through because I don't want to get caught up in this type of case. But at the same time, if you force her to testify, it could lock this guy up and prevent future situations where he does these terrible, horrible things. So I think that threatening her with jail time is not the answer, but maybe having a counselor talk to her and talk about how it's important,
But don't you think the jail time is the last step? I presume prosecutors have gone through every possible step.
Right. I think the jail, I don't know if they've tried other methods of trying to convince her to testify.
I would presume that this is the end of the line, that they've tried everything.
This is the way I see it. If they have done everything to try to convince her to testify and she still says, no, I'm not going to testify, throwing her in jail for 90 days also doesn't make sense.
Right, because it's not going to make her testify.
It's not going to make her testify. She's going to serve a 90-day sentence after being a victim of something horrible. And then this guy is still going to get away scot-free.
That's a great point. Like, the bottom line is, she's probably just not going to testify.
Right.
Like, you're probably just...
You're just punishing the victim here.
And you're probably just out of luck. Like,
right.
It's a tough go. What you want to do is keep going at her and say, you got to testify, you got to testify. And if whenever you can finally get her, you get her to testify.
And you really have to convince her, and I don't think it takes much convincing, that she is going to save other women's lives,
I'm sure I would imagine the prosecutor is continually trying to make that point.
Right.
Yeah.
And by the way, in this particular case, the victim's mother apparently got this guy to admit to molesting her daughter during a phone call. She recorded him.
Yeah, he's the guy.
Yeah, he's the guy.
Put the victim's mother in jail and all her friends.
Yeah, that would make sense. That would definitely help the outcome of the case.
I knew I'd solve it.
All right. We have one other story before we get to the break. So the Senate in Texas has failed to get the 2/3 vote needed to pass or actually bring the discussion up of SB 354. And that is basically the bill that allows guns on college campuses. Yeah, so this is something we've talked about on TYT University. Republican legislators in Texas want to give students the ability to carry guns on campus. They think it's going to make them safer. They think it's going to be beneficial for the students. But believe it or not, dozens of university presidents and hundreds of thousands of students are saying, no, we do not want this. We don't think it's going to make our schools safer. So we don't want the government to force schools to allow concealed carry on campus. So believe it or not, now all of a sudden the Senate in Texas is a little shaky on it.
Really?
Yeah, so what they have to do in the Senate in Texas is they have to have a 2/3 vote to even bring a discussion of the bill up, right? And they failed to do that. So they're not even discussing it at this point. But if they get that discussion, they only need 16 votes in the Senate to pass the bill.
Aren't legislative rules crazy?
They are a little crazy, yeah.
You got to bring up 2/3 just to talk about it.
Just to talk about it. But I like that because the fact that they didn't get the 2/3 means that, hey, they're not even discussing it right now.
No, sometimes it works for you. Sometimes it works against you.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
I mean, have you been to a college campus? That's a rhetorical question. Like, have you seen a football game at the University of Texas or Texas A&M? 92% of those students are drunk out of their minds.
That's such a great point.
I mean, they are painting their faces, and they are drunk, and they are fucking morons. And you want some of those kids to have guns?
No, that's such a great point. When we talked about this story originally, JR brought up the point of college parties. We talked about, just bad situations where there's alcohol involved on college campuses, right? But we didn't even talk about sporting events. Of course, I mean, they're getting drunk off beer, there's a rival team there, emotions are flying high. People get so into sports. So I cannot imagine those people
we just saw the
carrying
horrible
a gun.
thing that happened at, at Dodger Stadium, which is just the sickest story in the world. And now you got dumb college kids and they're drunk. They're so drunk. I mean, they get the alcohol poisoning and the frat parties, and then you get into a fight and you get a fight over a girl, and these guys are dumb. And they're guns, and they haven't learned totally how to use them, and they want to use it. They want to use it. It's a terrible idea, all because they think they'll be protected against Virginia Tech.
Right.
And and it's not like, I think it's a terrible idea. I understand that sentiment. It's a bad idea.
Yeah, I agree. And, you guys should check out TYTU because I give more statistics on, how rare it is for students to need guns to protect themselves on college campuses. In fact, there are more instances of suicides on college campuses. So if you're really worried about saving a student's life, the best thing you could do is provide easier access to counseling. So, if there are students who are thinking about suicide, they can get a little help. That'll save more lives than allowing people to bring guns on campus.
Pay for more armed security on campus, but you're going to have to pay for it.
All right, agreed. So let's take a break.
All right, I need a break.
Yeah.
I'm exhausted.
Let's take a break. When we come back, my favorite story of the day, Allen Iverson goes off on a cop.
I'm going to make fun of JR in this story, too, so it'll be nice.
Oh, I can't wait.